الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون صدق الله العظيم. My dear respected elders and brothers, mothers and sisters, and respected listeners, honorable listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you again to Tafseer with Mikaeel. We are in Surah Baqarah, and last week we talked about, I don't want to be too mellow on you, but we were talking about death. And the ayat that I recited, the verse that I recited, and let's go right into it. If you don't know where we're at, then last week you can check the recording from last week, and and listen to that, and reconnect to where we are. So the question was posed to those who were disbelieving in Allah Ta'ala, that كيف تكفرون بالله? How could you disbelieve in Allah? There's the gift of life that you have, that you've been given. It's a gift. It's just been handed to you. You didn't ask for it, nor did you earn it. It was given to you. So Allah Ta'ala says, Kuntum amwata. You were nothing. You were dead. Dead here means you were in nothingness. Before you were alive, you were absolutely in oblivion. You were nothing. فَأَحْيَاكُمْ. Then Allah Ta'ala gave you life. ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ. Then He gave you death. And that will be the death when our life here, after the years we live on here, in this world, when we pass away, what we call death, that thumma yumitukum, then you died. That second word, of course, Allah Ta'ala said amwatan, which meant this also death, but the first death, which Allah mentioned in this verse, meant nothingness, when you were nothing. Then you came into being and you were alive, and then you died. That second death, that will be the life in this world. Thumma yuhyikum, then Allah gave you life again, and that will be in the hereafter, what we call akhirat, when a person is raised to the day of Qiyamah. Now that thumma yumitukum, we got a little bit into that. And I wanted to express that just because Allah Ta'ala used the same word, amwatan and yumitukum, those both in Arabic language both mean death, maut. So it shouldn't be misunderstood that you were nothing, you got to life, and you were born, and you lived a full life, then you died, and then you went back to nothingness, you died. That a person may say that, I used to be nothing, I died, you only live once, and then now my death is going back into, a state of nothingness, so to say. So that's wrong. That's not a proper belief. Thumma yumitukum, the second one, actually means the death, of course, when you finish your life, but it will be far from nothingness. We mentioned about the intermediary period of barzakh, which comes in the Quran also. We mentioned some proofs of that. It comes in hadith also. We mentioned some proofs of that also. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam passing by a grave and mentioning to the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum that the two people in the graves, of course, there were many things that were opened up and revealed to the Prophet Muhammad that nobody could see. Only the Prophet Muhammad could see this. So the Prophet Muhammad pointed to both the graves, said, listen, these two, la yu'adhaban, they're both being punished right now. May Allah protect us and our families from the punishments of the grave. وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ. And they're not being punished on something that you would really feel is very significant sin. You would think that maybe they killed someone, or they did some real bad treachery, some real terrible thing in the world to deserve punishment in the grave. But the Prophet Muhammad said it's not really something that is very, not something which is very serious. And he mentioned that there was two things. One was the person was getting punished in the grave due to carrying tales and due to speaking lies and gossip. So this is of course it causes a lot of problems. Somebody carries a tale about us, somebody gossips about us, says something wrong, lies about us. So that's an unfortunate thing, and it could lead to a lot of difficulties in our life. And secondly, he said the second one was La yastatidu min bawli. He did not clean the urine, or she did not clean the urine after they went to the bathroom, after urinating, which is something also a person may think is trivial, but something a person may think is not very serious, something not, but actually it's very, very serious and very, because obviously, if a person is moistening their pants and not cleaning themselves, um, that leads to being impure. Impurity could lead to, if it's an amount determined in the Sharia, which makes a person impure to pray. So a person could be praying, but actually their prayer is not being accepted because their state of impurity, their clothes are not clean. So it could lead to a lot. And it's disgusting anyway. It's not something which is very good. And it shows ghaflat and unmindfulness, that a person would be negligent and wouldn't take care of something so important as to wipe themselves and of course in our religion, Islam, we take this very seriously. It's not that you just go to the bathroom and they say just wipe. No, no. Even if we have the wipes, we will wash. We wash and we do what we call istinja, and we clean the private parts, and it's a very intricate part of our Islam. And culturally, of course, there are rules about it in fiqh, where sometimes a person, if they need to, and these rules of fiqh sometimes and rules of jurisprudence, they're good to know in times of need. But culturally, sometimes people will feel that, in all cases you have to wash yourself, which is not the case. Sometimes if there's a little tiny bit of urine or impurity, then a person does not have to, wash themselves, especially if they can't, if they don't have water, or they're in a rush, or there's some difficulty. I'm not going to go into that because it's not a fiqh class or a jurisprudence class. But culturally, most people and most Muslims, in all cases, whenever they go to the bathroom, they will not feel comfortable unless they wash themselves. We ended off. Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Technical difficulties. Is that okay now? Can we carry on? Okay. So, what we were discussing last week was that what I just said about a person possibly being punished in the grave. Now, logically, if we look at it, how is that possible? How is it possible in regards to, if you look at someone who's dead, if we all went to a funeral, open casket, if we're lowering someone into the grave, we will see that body, and the body is lifeless. If we do something to it, if we are touching it, that body does not react. It doesn't, react and look like it feels anything that we do to it. And also, if something was happening to it, we do not see any effects of that on the body. And the punishments of the grave, which I don't want to go into, I don't want to start scaring people, but they are pretty horrific, where the angels will be hitting people and striking people, and there are things like scorpions and snakes that could be unleashed on the sinful people in their graves. Like I said before, may Allah protect us from all of these things happen. Allah is Ghafur Rahim. We hope that Allah Ta'ala forgives and overlooks our wrongdoings and our sins, so that we have an easy life in the grave and a peaceful life. And there are hadith equally that talk about the peaceful life in the grave also. But what would be our answer? What would be our reply if somebody said, hey, I did a janazah, I did a funeral yesterday, we opened up the body, we put it in the grave, there ain't nothing happened to it, I don't see any snakes, I don't see any scorpions, I don't see anything happening to the body, there's no reactions coming from the body, is dead, there's nothing happening to it. So how can you say that there's something going on with that body and there's some punishment? And even sometimes, for some reasons, we have to exhume the grave and we have to take the body out of the grave, and after many years, the body's taken out. And then again, even if the body hasn't decomposed, like we have in some incredible situations, like in, for example, when people are shaheed, when they've been killed for the sake of Islam, bodies have been taken out after many years, and they are the same as the day that they passed away. So you get these type of scenarios also, where miraculously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the body, and the body didn't go through any type of decomposure as it usually should do, becoming a skeleton or bones, or withering away into the dust and becoming fragments of dirt and dust and sand. Anyway, even if we exhume the grave, we don't seem to see any effects on that body, any effects on the grave. So what would be our reply to someone who says that, listen, I don't think, judging from face value, that adab al-qabr, barzakh, a punishment in the grave, or some type of intermediary period is proven and something which is um, true, because I don't see it, and I don't. So our reply would be, of course, obviously, the easy reply would be that this is obviously from the unseen knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's obviously a different realm, a different world, barzakh, which we call the intermediary period. It has been disconnected away from this world. When a person passes away, so now his ruh and his soul enters into a next world. And that world obviously cannot be observed and seen by the people in this world, for reason being, of course, that then the element of being tested in this world and believing in the unseen, that would be eliminated. A person would then obviously, see the unseen, and then that would be, he would believe after that. And there would be no test in belief because he's seeing the unseen. Part of the tests of being a believer, which we talked about in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, about maybe 15 or 20 tafseers ago, was yu'minuna bil ghayb. One of the first things, we believe in the unseen. Believing in the unseen, part of the package of that is that Allah Ta'ala does not expose to us the unseen except in very dire situations and very certain situations where Allah Ta'ala may show one of his servants something who of high faith and iman, to increase their faith or to even bring them onto faith. Allah may open and expose some type of knowledge of the unseen to that person. But in most cases, the angels, even the jinnat, which we call the demons, which one day inshallah we'll talk about them, and different different things that are part of the spiritual realm, if you want to call it, those things are not exposed to us. So one easy and simple answer could be that this is another world, another life which you enter into once you pass away. But we can even prove it without even going that far, because there's experiences of this in this world also. In the Arabic language, they say, an-nawm ukhtul maut, that sleep, it's the sister of death. Sleep is the sister of death. And we know that this analogy and this simile, which is said, it really means that there's similarities of sleeping with death. There's a lot of similarities with it. Sometime when the lady folk and they want to do a fixed marriage in the Pakistan, India, Arab culture, and they want to do a fixed marriage, so the mother and the sisters of the young boy who they want to get him married off to, so they will look for a girl and they will try to find out whether she is beautiful or not. And of course there's a lot of shenanigans and a lot of cultural occurrences that will take place if they go to the house and ask for the girl, and if the girl comes out and then they don't really like her and they don't really think that she's appropriate for the son. So they try not to get to that house, and they try not to get so deep, so they don't have to get into the different procedures of the culture, and embarrassingly, of course, if they don't like her, pull out of it. So what do they say? Take a look at the girl's sisters. If the sister's beautiful, then probably she's going to be beautiful. We can find a likeness with her also, a similarity. So in the same way, the Arab, they say, an-nawm ukhtul maut. If you want to know about death, so you can really base a lot of it and get some, shed a little light on it, and you can understand about it if you go into your sleep and analyze the sleep. Even the du'as that we say, which are part of the sunnah and the practice of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we go to sleep, and this is a dua that we always say, Bismillahi amutu wa ahya. When we go to sleep, our little kids, they know it also. We're teaching our kids this dua, and the Prophet Muhammad has taught us that when we go to sleep, we should say some things before we go to sleep, to remind us before we sleep that this is from the ni'mats and the blessings of Allah Ta'ala. We're about to go to sleep. Remember Allah. Before you close your eyes, the best thing to do is to be remembering Allah Ta'ala before you surrender to sleep and go to sleep at night. And then when you wake up, the best thing to do is to remembering Allah. So the Prophet Muhammad, out of all the things that could be said about sleeping, the Prophet Muhammad said, when you go to sleep, say, Bismillahi amutu wa ahya. That in the name of Allah Ta'ala do I die and do I live. Here the great muhaddithin, they say, amutu here means that I'm going to sleep. But because the death is just like sleep and has a lot of the similarities of it, the Prophet Muhammad, he mentioned that just say the word death. That one day you will close your eyes and you will surrender and go underneath and go into something that's similar to sleep, but it actually is going to be the real death, al-maut al-haqiqi, the real death. So we do that, and when we wake up, we are told that we are supposed to open our eyes and rub our face, because of course the first time we're supposed to wake up, and for everybody, of course, who is watching this and is Muslim, remember, inshallah, we got the Fajr in the morning. So let's wake up for our Fajr Salat. It's a little bit earlier than it was before, about a half hour earlier, about 5:45 in the masajid for the men, and the women folk, inshallah, can wake up about 5:30, inshallah, and get that prayer in. When we are supposed to wake up, we rub our faces and our eyes, and we say, Alhamdulillahi alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana wa ilayhi nushur. That all praise due to Allah Ta'ala, who has given us life. And we just only slept. We didn't die. Ba'dama amatana, after we died. So here again, the Prophet Muhammad using very extreme words of bringing back to life and dying, but the reason why he's using it in this occurrence in this time is because the death has so many similarities with the sleep, and the sleep has so many similarities to the death. So if we add and look at our sleeping, we can get a little picture of what death is like. So we had the complaint, and we had the question that a person who's dead, I don't see that person going through any type of punishments, going through any type of pain, enduring anything, and feeling anything. So therefore, there must be nothing of the sort happening to him. But take a look at when a person sleeps. Don't we have dreams? Of course we do. We all have dreams. And those dreams sometimes, you can't even, they're so weird, you can't even tell the person also what those dreams are about. And sometimes those dreams, they take us, we're sleeping in Long Island, or sleeping in New York, or sleeping in Chicago, in our bed, nice and comfortable, but now we're in China, or now we're over in Netherlands, or now we're in our homeland of Pakistan, or Afghanistan, or the Arab Mamalik, and we're in Saudi Arabia at the Kaaba. So many different dreams we have, and they feel so real. And we are feeling it also. And we are feeling it. But if our mother and fathers came in, if our husband or wife are looking at us, if our children are looking at us while we're sleeping, so of course there are some movements while we sleep, but sometimes it's such that we are fast asleep, we are in deep sleep, and a person cannot tell by looking at us that we're driving a car in our dream, or we're running in our dream, or we're talking in our dream, unless we expose and say something, or the dream is having some effect on our body outwardly. Many a time we're sound asleep, and the person can't see what's going on while we're sleeping. We say in the same way, it is possible that that person who's being lowered into the grave, though his body's lifeless, and it looks like nothing's going on physically with that person. The same thing that nothing physically is going on with the person who is sleeping. But that thing is having an effect on his ruh, on his soul. Because we all have a soul in our body. And in this world that we live in, right now, this world that we are living in, we have our physical body and our ruh. Here in this world, most of the time, the physical body is affected, and the ruh is affected, but not as much as it would be in the hereafter. Now we got two stages of the hereafter we go through also, which I talked about already. One is barzakh, the life of the grave. In this world, the body and the soul are affected, but most of the time, it's the body which is affected, and the ruh is affected sometimes. If we pray, if we do dhikr of Allah Ta'ala, if we do good, our ruh is affected. But most of the time, the things that go on in this world, it is a bodily experience, physical experience. When we pass away, then our ruh comes out of our body. And it does some traveling, and one day we'll talk about that, the description of death. And it travels, and it eventually comes back to our body. But when it comes back to our body, the barzakh and that intermediary period, the life of the grave, if you want to call it, that is a life that now has nothing to do with the physical realm. Only our ruh and our body is being affected. Only our ruh and our body is being affected. In this world, the body is affected, and the ruh is affected in a minimal sense. In that qabr, the life of the grave, only the ruh is accepted, and there is no physical experience. But don't think now it's not a physical experience that you may not feel something and not experience something. The dream, somebody smacks you in a dream, you feel it. You falling off a building, when you wake up also, sometimes you feel like you're falling off the building, and you grab onto your covers, or you grab onto, and I hate when that happens, and you feel like you're falling. It's a very weird feeling. So no one will say that, oh, the dream is a spiritual experience, something that happens in my mind, if you want to say, therefore I do not feel the dream, I do not experience the dream like I was alive. No, we experience it like we're alive. So just because the life in the grave has to do with our ruh, and it will affect our ruh directly and only, doesn't mean that if there's pain there that we won't feel the pain. It doesn't mean that if there's pleasure there we won't feel the pleasure. We will. It's just someone in the physical realm, like living in this world, will not be able to see the effects of that on our body. And then when we get to the akhirah and Allah Ta'ala raises us from the graves and we go to the Jannah, the heaven, or those who go to the hell and Jahannam, may Allah protect us and our families. So in that place, it will be 100% intact and connecting. And there will be so much pleasure or so much pain with the ruh, and equally with the physical body as well. In the hereafter, after the day of Qiyamah, either a person's going to Jannat or a person's going to Jahannam, heaven or hell. In those two places, if it's hell and the pain a person feels, if it's heaven and the pleasure a person feels, they will feel those two things 100% fully with their body, physically, and their soul, their ruh, spiritually. Both will be felt in full, like nobody ever understood before. So from this explanation, and I've gotten into quite a bit of detail, I don't want to spend this much time on it, we can understand and see that there really shouldn't be any complaint or any confusion that a person may be getting punished in the grave and we can't see it in our physical realm, in our life here, and we can't see the effects of that on the body. Why? Because that attack or that punishment or even that pleasure, like we said in the grave, it could be good lives also, that pleasure or that pain is being felt by the soul, not by the physical body. Therefore, we can't see with our physical bodies and our physical eyes. So I hope that clears that up about the answer on what that would be if a person said that physically we can't see the dead person experience any type of pain or pleasure. So therefore, it's not true. No, it's not. Just look at the life we live in and the sleep that we do, and the example is there for you right there. Moving on and carrying on with the next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. Our translation: Allah Ta'ala, Allah, our God, our Lord, He is the one that created you. Khalaqalakum, He created for you, for your benefit. Ma fil ard, whatever is in the earth. Jami'an, everything. Nothing is not the makhluk and the creation of Allah Ta'ala. Everything Allah has created. Thumma stawa ila sama. Then after creating everything in the earth, Allah turned His attention to the skies. So Allah created the earth first, then He created the skies. فَسَوَّاهُنَّ, and Allah fashioned, shaped those skies, سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ, into 7 skies. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ, and Allah is in knowledge of everything. Allah is in knowledge of everything. So here in this verse, Allah is now pointing towards the blessing we use daily. We talked about the blessing of life. Now the blessings that in our life we use daily, and that is the things that are around us, which have all been created for our benefit. And many a times we take this for granted. Mostly all the things around us, or all the things around, we are taking direct benefit from. And there are so many other things that we benefit from, but we don't even realize it. How many parts of the body are operating right now? Our very life is dependent on those body parts working right, and they're working, and they are operating, and the air is flowing, and the earth is rotating, and the skies are moving, and the waves are splashing, and this great, cycle of life that is going not only in our own selves and our own bodies, but is taking place in every single nook and cranny of this world. It is all the makhluk of Allah Ta'ala, the creation of Allah Ta'ala, and Allah has created it all for us. It's all for us. It's all for our benefit. If it's for our harm, then Allah Ta'ala has kept us away from it, and has kept us away from the harm, and sometimes it does harm us in this world. We can be hurt, and we can have pain, and we can have pleasure. But basically, the earth and all that's in it has been created for us. Then Allah Ta'ala talks about, and that's beneath us. That's what we are standing on. That's what's in front of us, the earth, the surface, the land, whatever you want to be, which vegetation and water comes out from, and water, lies in. And mashallah, so many beautiful things here in the world. I don't want to go into so much detail. And there'll be verses that we can go deep into, inshallah, later on, where Allah Ta'ala talks about the great ni'mats of the earth. Then Allah Ta'ala says, then He turned His attention towards the skies. This is, of course, in the beginning when Allah Ta'ala created the creation. So He turned His attention to the skies, and He fashioned and shaped those skies into how many? 7 different skies. According to, the ulama of Islam, and according to the Quran and the Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the scholars of Islam, the skies are 7 in number. 7. And we are only looking at what we call a Sama'u Dunya, the closest sky. And that is only the first sky. That sky will go up, and insan, mankind, though he is, increasing in his knowledge of space and his knowledge of the galaxies and the solar system and everything, it's increasing all the time, but we have not even gone close to the end of the first sky. The hadith and the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad in regards to Mi'raj, and one day inshallah we'll talk about that also when the verse deems us to talk about it. When the Prophet Muhammad traveled up to the skies, to all the way to the top of the 7th sky and beyond it, and talked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, those 7 skies, the Prophet Muhammad went through every single one of them. And even when you go to the top of that sky, there's a door there, and there's an opening there, which the Prophet Muhammad with Jibreel alayhi salam had to knock and get permission to go into the next one. So 7 skies were like that. The end of the first sky has a surface. It has a roof. It has a roof. And even after that, which we call saqaf, وَجَعَلْنَا السَّمَاءَ سَقَفًا مَحْفُوظًا, Allah Ta'ala said, we've created the sky as a roof, which is protected. So there's a roof there, there's a surface there, and then after that, a person enters into the 2nd sky, and the 2nd sky, only Allah Ta'ala knows what is in those 2nd skies and what is in those skies. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. We have not even gotten close to reaching the end of the first sky, better yet to know what's in the 2nd sky and the 3rd, all the way up to the 7th. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. And this large creation of Allah Ta'ala, the earth in its vastness, and the skies in its vastness. And we're not even talking about the skies that we just look up, those blue skies. We're talking about the skies, which is the whole solar system and all of the space that we see, or that we don't even see, that we hear about around us, which is billions and billions and billions of miles and galaxy miles, and you get all these different things. I'm not good at science and all these things, but we know it's enormous out there, and it doesn't end, and the knowledge is, and the exploration just keeps going on with NASA and people who are on telescopes and checking out all these different skies and galaxies and black holes and all these different things. It is almost seems like it's infinite, but it's not. It's not. And in its vastness, Allah Ta'ala knows every single thing that's in there. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. Allah Ta'ala knows every single thing. If there is a galaxy and it's shining and twinkling, if there's a star that's twinkling billions of miles away, and there's not a person to see it, and there's not a soul to experience it, and there's not an angel who knows about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and is in knowledge 24 hours a day, not a minute or a second passes. And we know the other verses are there, that this is the vastness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. But we can also get verses about the particular knowledge of Allah Ta'ala, which we call Allah Ta'ala's latif. Allah Ta'ala's knowledge is very specific also. The intricate small things, the heart of the ant, the small pebble and rock which is submerged in the bottom of the ocean, the leaf that falls off the tree in the middle of the jungle. Allah Ta'ala knows all about that. The famous ibarat and the famous text of Imam Ghazali, where he says that the black ant on the black rock in the darkness of the night, Allah Ta'ala knows what's going on in the mind of that ant also. This is the vast knowledge of Allah Ta'ala, which we call Al-Alim. We can become alim, we can know things. A'lamu, I know something, but we can never be alim. We can never be the all-knowing. There's nothing at all hidden from the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah in this verse shows us proof of that by mentioning something so vast that the eye cannot even see, the mind can imagine a little bit about it, but can only imagine in words, not in reality. That the skies are this big and the earth is that big and this deep and that deep. In words we can say it, but our minds cannot really fathom and understand how vast that is. But in that imagination that we have of its vastness, let it be known also, and let that also enter into your heart and your mind, that the one who's created it is in full knowledge of it. Nothing is hidden from him. Nothing's hidden from him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Luqman also has mentioned a lot about these things. That there's so many ni'mats and so many blessings, so many things we don't even realize, like I said before. In Surah Luqman, Allah Ta'ala mentions, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. Have you not seen that Allah has subjugated, has made obedience, subservient to you, whatever's in the skies and in the earth? These large animals that we slaughter and we eat, they become subservient to us. I always jokingly say, if a lamb was to open his mouth and give you some growl, or a cow was to start chasing you with its mouth open, or a camel or a horse, or these animals that we enjoy and we eat, even a small chicken, if they all start running after you and start with their beak picking at you and attack you, so what would we do? We would not be able to even slaughter these animals and take control of these animals. But these animals, we grab them, we go in front of them, they are scared of us. Even though they are more stronger than us, they're faster than us. So Allah subjugated and made obedient all these things in the skies and all these things in the earth. وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ. And He has given us the blessings of Allah Ta'ala in a very complete manner. He's completed His blessings upon us. ظَاهِرًا, those which are apparent, وَبَاطِنًا, and those which are hidden. The heart is beating right now. It's such a miracle if we just sit there and talk to a person who studied the heart. Sit there and talk to a person who studied the lungs, studied the eye, studied the teeth, a dentist. Someone who studied the throat, the feet, right? Whatever, the veins, right? These Facebook pictures come and show like a X-ray picture of insan, and they make these different different mannequins and stuff like that, showing this wiring that's inside of us, of these veins and vessels. So many of them. They say the intestines, if a person was to stretch it out, I've heard, I don't know how true it is, but it can go, I don't know, around the earth twice or something like that. We've heard about incredible things. Don't quote me though. If it's nonsense, then it's nonsense, but you can check it out. I heard the intestines are so much, and it lies just in our little stomach, all those intestines. Even if it's 10 feet long, a person would be, so, incredibly amazed that something 10 feet can be in our small little stomach. So these ni'mats and blessings of Allah Ta'ala, whether they're apparent and things that we see every day, we still take it for granted, or whether it's the inner, secret blessings of God, which we are, benefiting from all the time, Allah has given that to us. He is the one that has now blessed us with this. Despite all of these blessings, the blessing of life, and the beneficial things that Allah has given us, despite all of it, that we use in our everyday life, people still deny the Creator. And they even doubt His power and His ability. That all this He's created, is there anything that's impossible for Him? Obviously not. But still there's people who doubt these things. So in the next verse, Allah Ta'ala exposes the creation. So Allah exposes in this verse the creation of the skies to show them that do they think that Allah Ta'ala cannot resurrect the creation? Because the awwal muhatabeen, the first people who were being addressed were the mushrikeen of Mecca, those people living in Mecca who were pagans, and they had a very, very big complaint and doubt where they said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He cannot and will not raise us from the dead. Why? Because He doesn't have the power to do that. How are we going to become from dust and dirt and become our bodies again? Well, how can that happen? It's impossible. So in this last verse, before Allah Ta'ala gets into the beginning and initial creation of insan, Allah Ta'ala exposed and talked about the creation of the skies and the creation of the earth. That do you think that Allah cannot resurrect creation on the Day of Judgment? His power is supreme, and He definitely can do that. There's no doubt about it. I think we'll stop there, my dear brothers and sisters, because the next verse is going to be talking about, and we did a lot about the blessings of Allah Ta'ala, which are tangible. Those blessings that we can feel, touch, understand, perceive. There are those also blessings of Allah Ta'ala which are not tangible, which are intangible. For example, like the knowledge we have. It's intangible. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will go into an incredible verse and an incredible, series of events of the creation and details of it, the creation of our father, great, 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 great grandfather, Adam alayhi salam, the first man, Adam and Eve. And Eve is going to come also. That story is going to be started as well, where Adam alayhi salam, his creation, the display of him, and the idea of his creation brought before the angels. We're going to talk about the shaitan also, the sujood to Adam as well, and insan himself. What is Allah Ta'ala trying to show us about our own physical being, mankind? How great is this mankind? What a blessing God, Allah Ta'ala, has done by creating us, and the honor of Him as He was initiating our creation. The very first thing is we were honored. And why were we honored? What makes us so distinct from the other creations? So inshallah, we're going to be talking about that, going into those verses and speaking about that. Inshallah, next week we'll talk about that and get into that with the verse, إِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. We thank everybody for taking part this week. I wanted to get into that, that verse about the death and that question. I felt that was very important, so I got into it a little bit too much, where I wanted to get into this verse also. We weren't able to do it. I don't want to start this verse and then cut off. I want to cover quite a bit of it, so the best time would be next week to do that. And we've, mashallah, gone into about 40 or 50 minutes anyway, and this is where the people start yawning and start saying anyway. So we'll get off, inshallah, now, and hope everybody took in what we talked about, understood it, and may Allah Ta'ala save us from the punishments of the grave, give us a good life here, a good life in the barzakh, in the intermediary stage of life, and also the hereafter. May Allah enter us into Jannah, into heaven, without any questioning, bighayri hisab, and enter us into the highest Jannah, which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, when you ask for the Jannah and ask for the heaven from God, from Allah Ta'ala, ask Him for Jannat al-Firdaus. Ask Him for the middle of the garden. That's always the best place. The middle of the garden. Firdaus actually is the middle of the garden, the highest place in Jannah. Ask Him for that. Allah can give it. He is Kareem, and He's kind, and He's ready to give off these things. May Allah Ta'ala bless us with it. Wa akhu da'wana alhamdulillah.